there, welcome back to FiddleUP. I'm Emerald Ray, and today we're going to learn one of my original tunes. This is called Up in Smoke. And I wrote this tune originally because I was playing with a piano player, a friend of mine, who was talking about how his piano had caught on fire at some point. And this comes up every once in a while. This is kind of one of those funny things where you think, oh my gosh, you hope your instrument never catches on fire, but occasionally things do catch on fire. So I just love this story so much that I took it and named this tune after it. And this tune is like a really squirrely, unusual tune. It's not particularly hard. There are some tricky things about it, but it's more squirrely than actual difficult. So we'll talk about it. It's just kind of like, was it an unusual tune and an unusual story? That's why I came Up in Smoke came up. But yeah, I mean, there are stories of instruments catching on fire, sound equipment on stage catching on fire. In fact, my other fiddle, this is Edith, who I don't know if I have brought her out for this course before, but yeah, she was in a fire. That's why she's this brown color. She's covered in soot from a fire that she was in. So, you know, it happens. Anyway, that's all I'm going to say about that. So this tune, very squirrely, very unusual, old-timey sort of sounding E minor tune. So it's kind of like E minor isn't a huge key in old time, so I thought it was time to have an E minor old time tune, I guess. So this one's really fun. It's got kind of a lot of old time elements, but because it's falling in a different place on the fiddle, it just sounds really strange and haunting and unusual. So I thought this might be a fun one for this course. I recorded this tune with a band called Anna Olivia years and years ago on a record. I think it was The Same Way Down. I think that's the record that this one made it onto. And so if you want to go listen to that, that would be cool. So it starts off on your B on your A string and your open E. So, well, without the double stops, the basic bare bones of the tune is going to be more like. So that's doable, and with all of the open E string there, it starts to sound a lot more complex, but it's actually not too bad. So let's just do that bare bones tune again. So we have open E. So I'm going for a B flat with the fourth finger there. So that's why that's sounding so unusual, because I'm hitting a tune, hitting a note that's not in the scale. So I'm doing a little pulsing bow there to get myself into down to the C sharp. So this tune kind of goes back and forth from E minor to from an E minor chord to an A major chord. That's kind of like most of what's happening. So we have E minor. So now we're in a A major chord here. And then back to E minor there. So let's try that again. And I add all the double stops in there because in old time music, you just do a wash of double stops the entire time. You're playing two strings most of the time. Your E and B there. So let's try it with the full double stop glory here. So that's the first part of the A part, and then we continue on with a little C chord. So that's starting off on your C on the A string. And it's pretty much the same thing, only we're holding that C as the bottom note there. So it's just kind of reharmonized If you've heard the word reharm or reharmonizing, it's basically taking that same phrase and putting a different chord over it so it sounds a little bit different. That's basically what's going on here. So the first phrase with the E minor, it sounds like this. So I have the B here on the A string. And I'm going to do all of that, but over the C. So I'm changing it slightly to go over that, go over the C and the, right? So, okay, let's try the first phrase again, over the E minor again. So I was hanging out on that C sharp there. And then when I do the whole phrase again, going over with the C. And then I'm going to be hanging out on the B more. So hanging out on that E again. So I hope that makes sense. Again, this is a really squirrely tune. It'll make more sense if we do it a couple times. So let's start from the very top. So just adding in all those double stops there. It's easier with the first finger because you can, have a little bit more room to work. It does get a little crazy with the second finger. Only because if you're not used to getting into those tight corners with your second finger and rocking back and forth like this, that can be a little strange. I mean, you don't necessarily do a ton of that stuff in other styles of fiddle, so that's just something to be aware of. Let's try the open E up to the G. So there's that. And that's it. That's the whole A part. So let's try the whole thing really slow. So if you're wondering about the timing there, the timing is very classic old time timing, if that makes sense, in terms of where you come in for the first part of the tune, like the one in old time music, the tune starts before the one happens, so it's one. It's kind of hard to do that and say the numbers at the same time, but it's 1, 2, 3, 4. So that you want to start the tune kind of right before the one. That's how old time tunes work. They start a little bit before that one, and then kind of lean into halfway through that pulsing bow. to get that one happening. But generally the guitar is, you know, doing their thing. So that's why that happens. It's kind of a weird feature of old time music where they just start a little bit before the bar. But that happens in Shanos dancing as well. So it does happen in other places. Not everybody starts right on the one. So that's just good to something to know if you're learning a bunch of old time tunes, that generally the start of the tune is going to happen a little bit early and be a little bit like an anticipation is what they would call it in jazz. So let's try this B part. So the B part is not hard. This is not a hard tune. It's just, again, squirrely and unusual, which is why it made its way into the advanced course. It's not super hard. It's just a little finger twisty. But the B part is super easy. So let's try. Right? So that's not hard at all. It's almost like so repetitive. It's just kind of rolling along. So the whole thing is just... And there's some variations depending on where you are in the part. But it's starting from the beginning where, and the only things that are happening as far as double stops go is I'm leaning into this A string. So we're really leaning into just an A pedal for this whole part. This whole part is pretty much an A. So I think it is, yeah, just A the whole time. You could play around with it, but A is the bass. So just hit all the lights back there. So let's try that again. So you're starting from the E on the D string. So I'm just grabbing, I don't know if you can see that. I'm grabbing my A down here. So that's optional. You don't have to do that. It's not that hard. It just might feel like your fingers are stretched over 3 different strings, but I kind of like that feeling, so I like to add that in. So let's try that again. From the very top of the tune, let's see if I can get all of the variations right here. Let's see if I can get my own tune right. Wouldn't that be nice? Let's see if I can do it. Okay, so that's it. So it's... That's the little twisty bit in the middle there, and I repeated it enough times that I think it probably makes a lot of sense at this point. Let me try it a little bit slower and see how that goes. there with the E and the B on the D and A strings, because then I'm heading up and doing all that on the top. So yeah, you want to kind of make sure you set up the next chord, or that's what I like to do anyway. So, want to try that one more time? Let's give this B part. So that's how we're coming out of the A part there. So we'll start the B part from here. So let's try to add some of that A string in there. Alrighty, let's try the whole tune. So I'm gonna start off before the beat. 1, 2, 3. So there you go, that's Up in Smoke, and you can add your own little twisty things to this as well. You could even add some more ornamentation. I'm not adding a ton because it's more old-timey sounding, so I'm kind of adding a thing here or there, but I'm not trying to overdo it because I'm kind of trying to keep it really simple. I'm also, as you noticed, throwing in a shake of vibrato here and there just to get the note to pop out. But generally in old-time music, you wouldn't do any vibrato at all. So bear that in mind, is adding any vibrato in is going to make it sound kind of Celtic, or classical, which, you know, depending on how seriously you want to be taken in the old-time world, that might not be the direction you want to go in. I don't care. So I just kind of do me. And I will add little ornaments and, you know, little Celtic things and little shakes of vibrato if I feel like it, and I'll generally be playing the tune mostly old-timey the whole time. But I have kind of like my own way of doing things at this point, so I kind of don't mind having a little mix of things. I put old-timey things into my Celtic tunes as well, into my Cape Breton tunes or whatever, and I just kind of mix it around a little bit, and that's what gives me my own personal style. So feel free to do that. You don't have to, you know, go all the way down the rabbit hole on a style unless you really want to. So kind of feel free to add all these different things, you know, as you feel like. So I hope you love this tune. I hope you put it into your repertoire, and maybe we can play it together sometime. I would love that. So I'll see you in the next video.